Buenos dias und herzlich willkommen bei Gate 7, deinem Podcast über Fernweh und Fotografie. In dieser Show geht es um Menschen, für die Reisen mehr ist als Spaß und Erholung. Freue dich auf praktische Tipps und Tricks, wie du tief in fremde Kulturen eintauchst und lerne, deine Abenteuer in bewegenden Bildern festzuhalten, egal mit welcher Kamera. Bist du bereit? Dann los, lass uns abheben mit deinem Gastgeber, Kai Beermann.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gate 7 podcast where it's all about travel and photography. My guest today is Luc Kordas. He's originally from Poland but now lives in New York. In this interview, we talk about one of his most recent projects, which is called Loneliness in New York. What I find so interesting about this project is that Luc actually didn't start out with a clear idea of what the final outcome would be like. In fact, it was another photographer looking through his images that pointed out that loneliness was a recurring theme in his images. With that in mind, Luc himself took a closer look at his archive and realized that it was true. He discovered many images that displayed loneliness in some way or another in a big city like New York with its over 8 million people. Over the last couple of months, he's gained quite a lot of recognition for his project, which is very well deserved, I think. His images are truly extraordinary, intimate and distant at the same time, showing brilliantly the seeming paradox between lonely people and the lack of connection in a bustling metropolis like New York. Luc says, "The city fascinates me one day and makes me think of leaving the other." And he continues, "I know many New Yorkers feel the same way. Ironically, despite New York's density, it's not hard to feel alone. So many people are focused on money and careers, that's why they come here. There's little time left for relationships or hanging out." It's a feeling that Luc himself often experiences, to feel lonely even though being surrounded by countless other people. In that sense, Luc's series is proof of the saying that an image often tells more about the photographer than about the actual subject in the frame. I find that very fascinating, and it's one thing I highly recommend to every photographer, to go through one's own images looking for clues of one's own identity. You might make some surprising discoveries, just like Luc. You'll be amazed by seeing subjects and themes that you weren't conscious of in the moment of pressing the shutter. So this is one important takeaway from this interview that you can apply to your own photography. On the other hand, there's the broader approach to photography, thinking in projects, which can help you to become a better and more deliberate image maker. I hope you find value in my conversation with Luc. He sure is a very compelling storyteller, deep thinker, and of course an awesome photographer. But before we dive into the interview, just one quick announcement. If you like to discover more great photographers from all around the world, just go over to artofcreativephotography.com. Besides Gate 7, that's my other online photography project, where I talk to amazing visual storytellers from all kinds of different genres, such as street photography, portrait photography, photojournalism, or fine art, for example. They all share their secrets and give lots of practical advice that help you to become a better photographer. I'll soon launch a podcast on that site as well, which will only be in English. So if you enjoy this conversation with Luc, please head over to The Art of Creative Photography and sign up for the newsletter. I'll then let you know when the new podcast hits the air. But now, without further ado, please enjoy my interview with Luc Kordas. Thanks for listening. Hello, Luc. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kai. How you doing?
I'm just fine. Thanks
for the invite.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time, and it's great to follow up with you. About 3 years ago, you were so kind to write a very interesting essay on street photography for my photography blog.
Yeah.
And now we have a chance to talk.
Yeah, it's cool. I didn't realize it was 3 years. This time flies like crazy.
It does. It sure does.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It is what it is.
Right. Yeah, I've been following your work, and recently there popped up an article on Lens Culture about a new body of work or a series you did on loneliness in New York, which I find very interesting. Actually, it's a part of a broader body of work of yours, New York Chronicles.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. And I really like to talk about that series with you. But before we dive into that, Just please introduce yourself. Who is Luc?
All right. Well, I'm a street photographer and portrait photographer who moved to New York almost 4 years ago. And I'd been doing photography for about 10 years, more than 10 years right now. And yeah, I live and work in New York. I do photography full time. And like I said, it's mostly portraits, but also street. And actually, I feel like there are a large number of people who know me as a street photographer, but they don't necessarily know that I do portraits, and vice versa. But I actually do both and much more as well, because I do travel. I travel a lot, and a little bit of documentary photography. I dabble a little bit into fashion, but it's not my thing. But I do like doing some things connected with fashion too.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's hard to just make a living from street photography, so you need to have some other jobs on the side and make some other photography.
Yeah, absolutely. Street photography, here in New York, there is a plethora of super talented street photographers who really put in time and effort. And there are some jobs and there are ways of making money, and there's some people that make money of street photography. I am one of them, but there's not enough room for everybody. And I don't think, with some exceptions, I don't think you can make you can make street photography your only source of income. So yeah, like you said, you need to mix whatever you can.
Yeah. Well, you're in a great place for street photography, New York.
Yeah, that's why I came, to be honest. Is one of the main reasons I came to New York was to do street photography. And yeah, so New York is the capital of photography, I would say.
Yeah, right. You mentioned 4 years ago you came to New York, and but originally you're from Poland, and
yeah, I'm from Poland.
And before living in New York, you've lived in several countries, so you're a big traveler.
Yeah, I am. I've been on the road for more than a decade now. I think I lived in 6 countries. I lived a lot in Spain. Was connected with my university, my master's. I lived a little bit in France, in London, UK, in Edinburgh, in Scotland. So yeah, I've been around for quite some time. I also lived in San Francisco for one summer, and then with New York, the thing was I came here first in 2008 just for a week as a tourist. I liked it, but didn't think much of it. And then I came back in 2012 for 3 months, and that's where I fell in love with the city and street photography. And just basically photographed the city for 3 months straight. Came back to Europe, had a really large body of work, all shot in black and white. This is the same style as you can see on my Instagram right now. And I noticed that it kind of started gaining traction. People liked it, and I liked it. So then, back in 2012, when I came back to Europe, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to go back to New York and do it longer. Just come here, live here, and try and do it for a couple of years. And that's what happened. The only thing is, it took me 2.5 years to kind of lay out a plan and make it happen. But it did happen in the fall of 2013, and I've been living here ever since.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned that this body of work, New York Chronicles, it's a wider body of work, and then from that, from those photos, eventually, or in the end, this series evolved, or the theme loneliness in New York.
Yeah, you know what? The loneliness theme wasn't actually my idea. And as a street photographer, I don't go out with an agenda. So I don't go out and think like, okay, I'm going to photograph lonely people today, or I'm going to photograph kids today. This is not how it works. But because I've been doing this for so long, there's certain themes within the broad spectrum of the street photography that I do that kind of stand out. And the loneliness series was Maggie Stieber's idea. Maggie Stieber is a fairly known photographer here in the States, street and documentary. And I was in Miami for the Miami Street Photography Festival last December, and she saw my work, and she saw a couple of pictures, and she said, "Oh, you see, you have a theme of loneliness, like those." And she showed me like 4 or 5 photos. Like those photos would go well together. And I thought, that's interesting. I didn't see it because, when you do your work, a lot of times you're just too close to it to see that. And then when you show your pictures to other people, they see more than you do because you're just too close to your work. And I thought, okay, this sounds good. That sounds like a good idea. So I sat down and did a selection. And I don't know, there's probably like 15 pictures in it right now. And uploaded to Lens Culture, and they picked it up.
Okay, so you already had the images, and you made you edited the work you already had, or did you go out and did you take some more pictures?
No. This was I have such a vast archive of photos, like what you see on my Instagram, which is like the main outlet for my street photography, is probably no more than 10% of what I have on my computer. So, in that portfolio that I showed Maggie, there were probably 4 pictures, but I knew already in Miami that I have more. So when she said, these pictures, they work well together, I thought, okay, let's see what happens. And I didn't really think that it would pick up like that. I was like, okay, it's just one of the themes I have. Other themes I have is like Subway, which I really like, and I'll be continuing to work on it, and the kids and Coney Island and all those. So I didn't really think this one would, but I just selected a number of photos, 10 or 15, and Lens Culture contacted me and they say, hey, we want to publish that. So, and it kind of snowballed from there a little bit.
Yeah, it really got some recognition, and through the Lens Culture article, and then I saw you've been covered also in German newspapers, Süddeutsche Zeitung.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, they have a huge following. I didn't know it, to be honest, but they're the biggest newspaper in southern Germany and Bavaria, right?
That's true. Yes, it's one of 3 nationwide newspapers in Germany.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's a great job to get covered.
And actually, I just before we started today's podcast, I got an email just now from Al Jazeera here in New York, and they want to do something on loneliness too, and I think they want me to have an interview with them or something. So it kind of keeps going still, even though it was published 2 months ago.
Yeah, it really gained traction.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting what you mentioned, that you yourself, you weren't aware that you had this particular focus on loneliness within your body or work. And I found a very interesting quote in that article in the German newspaper, and you said that, it's actually not one of your quotes, but it's often said that a photograph sometimes says more about the photographer than about the subject or the scene being photographed.
Definitely. I think that, you know what, I thought about it a lot, and I think this is true for virtually any genre of photography. This is true for a portrait photographer, and this is certainly true for a street photographer and documentary photographer. What you photograph is actually the photograph of you.
Yeah, and taking that as a starting point, what does this series, or what do the images tell about you?
You know what? Well, I wasn't doing it consciously, but I do like in my street photography, I do like to single out subjects as opposed to have many people in the photo. Obviously, a lot of my work is crowds, especially that it's New York. But my kind of style leans toward singling out a person in the crowd, even if there's a crowd, and focusing on one person. Also because I use 50mm lens sometimes, and it's actually one of my favorite lenses of all times, 50mm. So when you're using a lens like that, it's easier to separate a person from a crowd. And yeah, those images, lonely people walking down the street or in snowstorm, just you're in New York, but you're kind of alone or lonely. It's just visually pleasing to me. It draws my attention for sure.
Mm-hmm. And is that a feeling that you've experienced yourself? You've traveled a lot, and traveling means you get to a new place, you don't know people. It always takes some time to meet people, make some new friends. And is loneliness something that you've experienced yourself while traveling, and especially living in New York?
Oh yeah, no, totally. This is the price that you pay for exploring. You either stay where you at and you're comfortable and you have your friends and family close to you, or in at least in my case, or you just go out and see what's out there, and that was always stronger in me. But yeah, the price you pay is that you have to meet new people all the time, uh, and you move places. So up until when I moved to New York, I basically lived. I lived in one place for no longer than 10 months. This was it wasn't the rule, but this is what it was. Sometimes 3 months because I had like short contracts to do. Sometimes 6 months. Sometimes a year. But then I would move on. So my best friends are still back home, and then I know plenty of people around the world. Like really, it's surprising that I think of Australia, New Zealand, and there's someone there that I know. But a lot of those peoples are just people that I met along the way, but they're not necessarily close friends. And the interesting part about New York specifically is that it's such a big city. But I talked to a lot of people here, and I met a lot of friends and strangers, and the theme of loneliness is something common. Really, like people feel lonely here, and the reason for that is that a lot of people come here from outside of New York, either from the U.S. or the world, and they just leave friends and family behind, just like I did, or I've been doing my entire life. And they come here to make a living, to make it, to have a career, but that price is still there, and I think everyone has to pay it. So you have a city where there's 8 million people, but half of them are not from here, and so it's actually very easy to feel lonely. Also because New York is a big city, so if I live in Brooklyn and my friend lives in the Bronx, that's like an hour or hour and a half away on the train. So it's not like I'm gonna hop on a bike and see her in 5 minutes. It's like you need to plan the trip, and then everyone's busy, everyone's got their own stuff. So it's a common theme that's here. Like I think this is one of the leitmotifs of the city.
Oh, it's kind of paradox. So many people living in one city. Over 8 million people in New York.
Yeah, it's over 8 million here in the city, and I think officially, and I think it might be around 10.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. So, but it's not a loneliness. In the sense that not being among other people, but
Exactly. Yeah.
but also on another level, maybe on an emotional level, that you don't feel connected maybe to
Absolutely.
other people.
Yeah. No, this is what it is. Like you said, like it's not tough to meet people. Like get physical, go to a bar if you're that kind of person, or there's plenty of stuff to do. Like exhibitions and so on and so on. But it's about, like you say, it's about emotional link, and I feel when you're getting older, you kind of appreciate that more. If I was here as a 20-year-old, I would probably have, I wouldn't have minded that, because I remember when I was in London when I was 20, I didn't miss family or friends, and I didn't need that because I was just about to embark on that big journey called life. But as you go older, yeah, that kind of changes, and I know a lot of people who are also at that same point where they live here, they like the city, but there's something missing, and what's missing is the human factor, especially that. Um, if you're not American, there's also another level of of a kind of a barrier of mental barrier difference between uh, Americans and Europeans or South Americans or Asians. This really matters in the long run.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that cultural level, and then this maybe it's the the number of options you have in such a big city. You if you want to, you can be busy all the time, and there's so many attractions, so many or at work, so many opportunities that it's. You're always chasing something, but lacking the time in the end to spend with people that really matter to you.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a city like I said, it's a city that you come to because you're ambitious and you want to make it. And what happens is that when this is your priority, then friends and family obviously aren't. And it's not the best city to have a family. And to be honest, if I wanted to start a family, I would probably not want to do it here because it is a crazy city, very hectic, quite dangerous. Probably the most dangerous city I've lived in, because cities in Europe aren't that dangerous. And yeah, everyone's chasing dollar basically, and this is exactly the mentality here in New York. Like everyone's about their business. This is the antithesis of slow life.
Yeah, well, tough place to be, but some people are conscious of that. What the city makes with them, or what it means to live there,
Yeah.
and others, just like you, you are aware of all the negative side effects that life in such a city might have on you, but you still choose to be there and to live in New York. What is it that keeps you there? And are you? What's your plan? Are you planning to stay for some time and then leave, or is it something that you can put up with for the future in the future?
You know, this is the question I've been asking myself for a while, and for now, I would say I'll definitely hang around for a while because I'm not done with New York. That I know for sure. I'm not done with New York yet, but I don't think I'm gonna stay forever. Again, you never know what's gonna happen. I know I'm gonna be here for a couple more years, and you never know how it's gonna go. But for now, I feel more like Europe is my home, and I only noticed that when I moved here, because I'd been living in Europe all my entire life. And it's funny that we in Europe, when you live in Europe and you might be Polish, you might be German, you might be French or Spanish, you feel like we're different because we are different nations. But when you leave Europe and you go live on another continent, you realize that we actually have something in common as Europeans, all of us. And that's what I kind of miss sometimes, that kind of like more laid back attitude and mentality. Europe is definitely more relaxed than the United States, at least the kind of US I know, and I just mostly know New York. So yeah, and what's special about the city is the energy, man. It's just it's a city for doers, It's a city for ambitious people, and it's addicting. If you're that kind of person who likes to move forward, be on the move, and just explore, then this city is definitely a city for you, at least for a while. It's tough. It's very expensive. It's really ridiculously expensive, but it's a challenge. It's like climbing a mountain, and you climb it, and it's tough. You're sweating, but you enjoy it. And it's funny because I'm actually reading a book about the Mount Everest climb right now, and many I'm actually reading a book about it's Into Thin Air by John Krakauer, and it's about this expedition that kind of failed in 1996. And I read it, and the amount of suffering, because it's not even effort, it's just suffering that those climbers endure to just climb that mountain and then possibly die on the way down or on the way up any given day. It's incredible. And I thought about New York. For a lot of people, New York is just that, and a lot of people give up at some point because it's too much.
Yeah, but it makes a lot of sense what you say, that if you look at it like that, as being a challenge to live in a place like that, and and just get into the game and try what you're capable of.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's great. Have you developed some techniques or routines to deal with the overwhelm?
You know what? My life here is actually, I'm a very atypical New Yorker because I actually have a lot of time. I'm not very busy, and yet I somehow manage to make a living. So I'm not like most of New Yorkers who are, trying to meet is like an operation. Oh, okay, I can't do Monday. It's like everyone's busy and everyone lives so far away. But I'm actually taking it pretty easy here, to be honest. I don't really take part in the big city life in the rush hour. Sometimes when I get on the subway at like 7 or 8 or 9 a.m., it doesn't happen very often. But when I do, or say between 3 and 5, I'm like, oh wow, this is crazy. I'm glad I don't have to do this. But if I had a 9 to 5 job and I had to deal with the subway twice a day, like packed subway, I would probably be out of here already. Yeah. Yeah, because it is overwhelming, and I live in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a bit more relaxed. I actually live by the ocean, so I live in Coney Island, which is a very relaxed area, far from Manhattan, but relaxed. But if you live in Manhattan, man, that's intense. You need to either love it or have no other option, or just be making a whole lot of money, and if that's your priority, then you can take it. But I'm actually more of a nature person. So maybe in the future, hopefully in the future, I'll find a way to live outside of a city and try to make a living, living somewhere really nice, not among 8 million people.
Yeah, I can really relate to that. I myself, I like nature, but I've spent, now I live in Hamburg, which is not such a big city here in Germany. It's just 1.5 million people.
Well,
but
still fairly big.
Yeah, fairly big. But before that, I used to live 5 years in Buenos Aires.
Really?
Yeah. Even.
Oh man, it's my dream to go there. I've had Buenos Aires on my list forever.
You should go. It's amazing.
I may go next year. We're planning this trip, but yeah, Buenos Aires. So did you like it over there?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. But it's the same love-hate relationship you have with New York, or a lot of things you mentioned are true for Buenos Aires as well. It's even bigger than New York, and extremely busy. But
Buenos Aires is bigger than New York, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. But I also, I worked there as a freelance journalist and photographer, so I didn't have a 9 to 5 schedule, which just what you mentioned. It's different for someone who doesn't have to go with the flow every morning and crowded subways and buses and all that.
Yeah, that's a blessing, really. That's a huge blessing.
Yes.
To be able to do that, just like have your own working hours.
Definitely. Looking at the pictures from the series, we all have these pictures of New York in mind, Times Square and the downtown area, lots of people on the streets. But on your pictures, there's just lonely people. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the aesthetics of your images for that series and how you went about taking the images.
Mm-hmm. Well, the aesthetics is the same all around my street work. Um, I've had this kind of perspective and look from the start. So that series is no different in that respect. The only thing that's different is, the theme of lonely people. How I go about it, I just whatever catches my eye, I take a picture of. And like I said, I didn't take those pictures thinking about that theme. So these pictures were taken between, I think, 2012 and now, and they're like, what, 10 or 15 pictures there. But they make sense because they're lonely or alone people. When this material was published on Petapixel, the website, people started sending me emails saying like, "Oh yeah, we love your work," but some of them were like, "Oh yeah, but by the way, these people aren't lonely; they're just alone." As in, the fact that that there's no one there doesn't mean that they're lonely. And I agree. And this is not a photojournalistic project. This is not a reportage on lonely people in New York. This is more of a fine art approach, fine art vision of what loneliness could look like. So what it is these people could be lonely. They don't necessarily have to be lonely, but my interpretation is that they are. And there are a lot of lonely people in New York. Some of those people in those pictures certainly looked lonely. But like I say, not all of them actually have to be lonely. But it doesn't matter because I'm not documenting lonely people in New York. I'm working more as a fine artist in this particular project to show what loneliness in New York could look like or how people feel. But it's more of an artistic vision rather than a photojournalistic vision, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that makes sense. So that I had to make it clear to some people, because there are also quite a few comments under that Petapixel piece that, oh yeah, nice pictures, but they're not lonely. They're just alone. And again, yeah, they might not be lonely, but this isn't supposed to be an actual documentation of lonely people. This is me seeing loneliness in New York.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And the series is in black and white. In fact, all the pictures or images I've seen of you are in black and white. Is that
always?
Yeah.
Street photography, not portraits, but
right.
Street photography always black and white. Yeah.
What's the thought behind that? Why do you only shoot street in black and white?
I just like black and white more. I think it's elegant. I think it's timeless. And I think my initial love for that kind of photography, when I fell in love with that kind of photography, I didn't know it was called street photography. I was just like, oh, people in the streets, but they were always in black and white. It was always Henri Cartier-Bresson. It was Eugene Adget and all those photographers from the first half of 20th century. And this was my first kind of go-to inspiration. So from there, I obviously take pictures in color and then convert them into black and white, but they turn out really good in black and white, and I just stuck to it.
Oh, okay. You mentioned some names, some photographers. Let's talk about your influence. What are the names that influenced you as a photographer? Some photographers that you looked up to when you just started out taking pictures?
Well, the whole thing with photography for me actually started when my father subscribed to National Geographic, the magazine, and I think I might have been 16 or 17 years old, and the magazine would come to our house every month, and I would I would read the stories, but what I was mostly interested in were the pictures. The pictures were amazing, and I remember sitting in my room back then at the age of 17 thinking like, wow, that would be an amazing job to have, like be a National Geographic photographer. They just send you to Peru, take pictures. And because that was my idea, that's how I thought it works. It doesn't work that way anymore because everyone's a freelancer right now. But I thought back then maybe they actually had staff photographers. So this is how I got into photography, and my first photographs were of landscapes and in color. And the black and white street photography, I think it just happened when I was in New York for the first time in 2008. I think it might be because I'd seen photographs of New York in black and white, and I liked them way better than color pictures of New York, and I still do. And so when I finally got to New York, I saw New York in black and white. It was a natural choice for me. So and as far as inspirations, all the French photographers, Douaneau, Bresson, there's so many, I can't even, the American photographers. And then as far as strictly street here in America, Gary Winogrand is definitely my hero. He was obsessed with photography. This is one thing that I see in contemporary street photographers right now, that the street photographers that do the best right now and are the best, and New York is incredible. I think they're all obsessed with street photography, as in they go out every day or every other day and they photograph for like 4 or 5 hours. Some of them will go out and photograph for 10 hours. And that's how you get good. That's when you're obsessed. And Gary Winogrand was certainly that kind of man. He didn't even develop all his films. Plenty of photographers. So Vivian Mayer is another great story. I'm sure you heard of her.
Yes, I saw the documentary.
So like any name, Bruce Gilden, not my favorite in terms of aesthetics, but he's got the guts to come up really close. But also photographers who lean more towards fine art, like Saul Leiter. The Saul Leiter has a very interesting body of work in color as well. So there's a plethora of the past photographers, and I feel like street photography is having its heyday right now. Again, if you go on Instagram, there are so many good photographers here in New York, but also all around the world. Thailand, for whatever reason, seems to have a really good team of street photographers. I don't know why, but Bangkok apparently is a great place to take pictures. I've never been. So yeah, there's a lot of people who just do very good work.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at images from other photographers, the great names, or on Instagram from contemporary street photographers, how do you look at these images? Do you analyze them, or is it more a fleeting look that you take? How do you go about that?
I think it just it's mostly based on how it makes you feel. I think that's what photography and any art is about. That being said, you have within street photography, you have like sub-genres of street photography. One of the very popular genres right now is usually black and white street photographers whom I call mathematicians or architects, and they use the city. They look at the city almost as an architect would, and they put a small silhouette of a human somewhere in the urban landscape, and it's like I see it as a mathematical equations. Other photographers shoot from the heart. It's totally about emotions. There's like almost, I don't want to say no composition, but composition is definitely secondary. It's just about, it could be a wide angle shot and just like one person right in the middle. And you look at it as like, oh, that's sloppy. Like that's not a great photograph in terms of composition. But the person that's in the photo, her face or whatever gesture is everything. So you have different photography, but I feel like right now, the most popular genre of street photography is people who shoot color and wide angle. And here in New York, it's very popular. You just go shoot like 17 millimeters or 28 millimeters and shoot color. And a lot of people shoot film here. And I like this kind of photography. It's not my cup of tea, but I like seeing it. It looks very real. It looks like, oh yeah, this is This is how it looks. And a lot of those photographers look for strange, bizarre moments. Something out of ordinary. You look at the picture and you're like, oh, how did that happen? That's crazy. And there's some photographers that are really, really good at it. And you look at the pictures and it's like, how the hell? What is going on here in this picture? Like, what happened? So I would say that this is the most popular genre of photography. I turn more into the quiet moments in the city, into people being with themselves, people lost in their thoughts, people looking lonely, people looking sad, people having a moment rather than something absurd or surreal happening in the crowds. But I look at all the pictures and I think I draw inspiration from all of them, even though they might be very, very distant from my style, but there's always something to learn, or just, you do it subconsciously anyway. You look at a picture and it just, maybe if it's a picture that you really like, it stays with you, and 2 weeks from now it might pop back, or you see something similar and it triggers the reaction and you take a similar picture.
Yeah, that's it. I think a lot happens on a subconscious level, that you've seen something before and then you just encounter something, a similar scene somewhere along the way, and then maybe in the moment it might seem like a coincidence or a pure luck, but then it's all somewhere deep inside, or some previous experience you've had.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. I like I said, with the themes that I have themes that I photograph without knowing it. Like, for some reason, I like taking pictures of children. For example, I feel like I have a good connection with children in general. I can definitely relate to children because I feel like I still am a kid on the inside. So it's not like, oh, this adult sees a silly child. What is he doing? I understand what they're doing, so I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to taking pictures of older people that are alone, couples, and people who dress well in New York. If you look at my pictures, you won't see many people that wear, like, I don't know, sweatpants, for example. And it's no coincidence either. I'm just not drawn to that. If I see a man in a suit walking down the street, that's probably gonna be my subject, as opposed to someone walking in, like a weird t-shirt and sweatpants. It also matters for me who is in the picture, how they dress. I hate Apple headphones, those white headphones. And when people are on their phones, I just don't take pictures of people on their phones ever, because it's really annoying. And that virtually eliminates 50% of people in the world, if not more, because everyone's on their phone. So yeah, there's subconscious themes that you're not even aware of.
Oh, yeah. Talking about how people are dressed, I look at the pictures from that series, and there's a great example for that. A man shot from behind. It's in the winter time, and he has this beautiful trench coat, and he wears a hat. It's clothing you don't see very often or on the streets anymore. As you said, all like 90% of people talk on their phones. They have a backpack on and are very similar.
I hate backpacks, man. I hate backpacks.
Yes.
Now that you mention it, I realize I just don't know. It might sound really stupid. Like, other people would say, like, oh, okay, so you don't photograph life as it is because you don't hate backpacks and you hate headphones, but sorry, I'm not doing that. Like, I need, my photos need to be aesthetically pleasing. It's really important to me that the photo as a visual thing needs to look good, look nice. And, sweatpants, backpacks, and Apple headphones are not part of that.
No.
Although it might sound really weird, but it is what it is. I just don't like it.
No, I totally agree. It's true. You said that Well, you mentioned Gary Winogrand as one of your the photographers that inspired you, and that what you like about him is his work ethics. That he just went out constantly, every day, and just
Yeah.
took pictures and pictures and pictures. What does a normal or a typical day of shooting look like for you?
Well, I'm nothing like Gary Winogrand in terms of work ethic. I actually, I would say I'm pretty lazy compared to most street photographers. I used to I used to photograph a lot when I was here in 2012. So I was here for 3 months and I didn't have anything else to do. I just came to visit a friend basically, and I lived in Harlem. So back then, I would go out every other day and maybe take pictures for like 6, maybe 8 hours a day, and I would come back with maybe 400 pictures, from a day. Obviously, 90% of them gets deleted, or 95, but and right now I would say that I'm way, way more lazy, and I think it depends, but I will photograph maybe once a week. And many times right now, what I do is I have something else to do. I have another appointment, let's say at 6 in the evening. So I will go out 3 hours early with my camera, take pictures for 3 hours, and then go to the meeting. Reason being is that because I live in Coney Island, like going to Manhattan just to do street for me would be a little bit of a hassle. So I always try to, I might have a doctor's appointment and then I'll shoot for 2 hours after that, or 3 hours, but I usually don't shoot more than 4 hours at a time right now, which changed, because it used to be way more, but now I'm just not that. Uh, I'm not a hardworking photographer right now.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
take it very easy. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, that always changes, like according to what other things you have to do, and maybe there's going to be times when you go out and shoot more again.
Absolutely. I feel like other people motivate me. I had a friend last summer who visited me here in New York, and I noticed that he's a photographer too. And I noticed that I started just taking way more pictures just because I was with him. And he was new to New York, so I was, showing him New York and all that. And when he left after a month, I looked at my archive and I was like, wow, you took like way more pictures in August than you normally do, because he just motivated me. And I'm actually thinking of maybe this summer, if I can find motivation and discipline to do like 2 or 3 months of intensive shooting in Subway. Just go and maybe every other day or at least twice a week, but ideally more than twice, maybe 3 times a week, and just spend like literally 6 hours riding the subway, which is, but if you said that to any New Yorker, they would be like, "Oh man, that's like the worst idea ever. Why would you want to do this to yourself? This is like torture." But I think I want to torture myself this summer and just have spend a lot of time on Subway, because the things that happen on Subway, man, here, this is unbelievable. This is like a circus. So if you put enough time just to be there and catch those moments, you could walk away with a really substantial body of work from Subway. You have all kinds of weird people doing weird things, funny things. Uh, maybe that's what I'm gonna do this summer if I'm disciplined enough.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
New York is such an iconic city for street photography. What I'd like to know is, I've never been there. How do people react to street photographers?
People usually don't react. People ignore you. It also depends on how you go about taking pictures. I know that quite a lot of photographers take pictures from the hip. They do everything they can not to be noticed, which is understandable. But then there are photographers here who are like top photographers, and I saw the way they work because they have some videos, behind the scenes videos, And to my surprise, I realized that a lot of them just don't even put the camera to their eye. They just walk and shoot from the hip, shoot wherever, and then they always get something. I can't work that way because I use a bigger camera and heavier camera. So usually whenever I lift the camera to my eye, people notice. Someone will notice. So if you look at my pictures, you'll see that quite often the subject actually looks straight at the camera. If you go on my Instagram, because they catch me like literally the second or half a second before I take the shot. But I'm fine with that. I don't care. People don't usually care. People are, I guess they're used to it. Sometimes they'll be like, what the fuck? But they'll just keep on walking. I never had any really tough situation here in New York. Maybe someone got angry once or twice, but other than that, no big issues. No, but I know, when I was in India, for example, it was exactly the opposite. It was kind of annoying because the minute you lift your camera to your eye, everyone wants a picture. They literally wave at you almost. It's like, take my picture, which is exactly the opposite what we want as street photographers. The last thing you want is people posing, and the second people start posing for a picture, that's like a total game changer because, people have ideas about themselves. They want to look good, which, this is not what street photography is about. It's not about posing. So I actually found it challenging to photograph in India. Here in New York, people just don't give a fuck about, they're always in a hurry, and you have to be sneaky about it too. You have to, you have to make the right moves and smile. I feel like smile helps a lot. If I take a picture of someone and there's this second or two of like, what the hell, then I smile and they usually smile back. It's like, oh, okay, this guy means no harm. Oh. So that's important too.
Yeah, that's interesting. What kind of camera do you use?
I use Canon 5D Mark III. This was my go-to camera for most of my life. I mean, that and before that was obviously Mark II and previous Canons. But last year I won a Fuji X-T2 in a competition, which is a small camera. And I bought a pancake lens, which is a very thin and small lens, 27 millimeters. And I use it as my go-to street setup right now. The Fuji X-T2 plus a pancake 27 millimeters. It's tiny. It's really different from the Canon. However, I gotta say, I don't love that Fuji. It's a bit too slow. It doesn't have a viewfinder. I mean, it has electronic viewfinder, but it's not actual, what you see. And it's a bit too slow, and it's great because it's small, so it has its pros. I can literally stick it into my pocket. It has video as well, which is great, and I can flip the screen, so I can do really low angles, which is also great. My recent pictures from last year, if you go to my Instagram, you'll see that I just use different angles. And low angle I like low angles right now because I can just flip the screen and control the frame, which would be very difficult with that Canon. I would literally have to lie down on the ground, and so I never did that before, but now I can. So that's a good thing. But on the other hand, I miss a lot of shots with that Fuji X-T2. Obviously, I'm not going to be sponsored by Fuji after this podcast.
Probably not, no.
But I'm going to say, I'm going to say it like it's slow, and I miss a lot of shots. And recently, I went back to Canon, which is heavy, it's big, but boy, this is way faster. And I realized I should probably use the Canon more because it's just with Canon, I can react within a second or less, and I can get that shot, which is extremely important in street. With the Fuji, if it's 2 seconds, it's already too late.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it's lots of street photographers I've talked to lately. They say that Fuji is their camera, and they just just totally in love with
people. Yeah, people love it. I was really surprised because I read the reviews, and I would never be able to afford that camera. I would never spend that kind of money on an extra camera, at least not right now. I'd probably spend it on traveling. But since I won it, I was like, okay, cool. And I read the reviews, and all the reviews were just raving. It was like, oh my God, the best camera, the best mirrorless camera on the market. So amazing. And it really is good, and the quality is good. But, if you're comparing it to a full frame Canon, then I beg to differ. I will still say Canon is better in terms of quality, and it's definitely faster. But like you say, most of photographers are switching right now from the big DSLRs to mirrorless cameras. That includes everyone, from street photographers to portrait to travel photographers. They shoot film on it, and it looks good. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting transition, and it's to be seen how Canon is gonna react.
Right. Yeah. They have to, because they're gonna lose. They're already losing a lot of customers, and I'm not happy with Canon's service and all that. But yeah, it's just the speed. I can really work really, really fast.
Yeah, that's a big plus, the speed, and well, everybody has to find the camera that he or she feels most comfortable with. And with Fuji, for example, it's you go unnoticed with that small little camera. You can tuck it into your pocket, and that's a big benefit.
Plus, it also looks good. Like, it looks like a vintage film camera, the one that I have, and that's also important for me, that it looks good. But at the end of the day, if I miss 3 or 4 shots or 5 shots a day that I really wanted to get, well, that becomes a problem, because I would have gotten those shots with Canon, and you don't have that many chances during the day. If I go out to shoot 4 or 5 hours and I have 1 or 2 really good pictures, that's success. That's already a good day.
Yeah, it is. It's in street photography. You can't expect to come back home with lots of pictures from a day out shooting. No, it's that's right. Luc, at the end of the interview, I'd like to touch on one more topic, and it's as you mentioned, you've had quite some recognition for your recent series. You've been covered in different photography platforms on the internet, in the newspaper, and now the interview probably coming up. That's what most people or many photographers, they wish for that. But on the other hand, today's it's also visuals. There's so much photography on all platforms, on Instagram, and do you have some tips how you can get recognition for your work? Because in the end, I mean, we take pictures and want them, or want other people to see them.
Yeah, of course. I think you should just, as plain of an advice it might seem, you should keep working on your own stuff, and if it stands out, it will stand out. Someone will notice it. Obviously, there are ways to push your work to make sure that it's being seen. You can pitch your stories to magazines or different online platforms. If they have large following, then people might see you. But with that particular series, Loneliness, which again wasn't shot consciously, the way it happened is that I just uploaded it to my Lens Culture's profile, and their editor found me. I didn't expect that. So, but I have to say that before that series, the whole body of work, New York Chronicles, I think I have a feeling it was hard to sell as just street photography from New York. And when I started kind of segregating it into themes, like Loneliness, I have another one on Subway, and that Subway series is also going to be published soon in a couple of publications. When I started making smaller bodies of work within the whole, New York Chronicles, that's when it becomes more interesting to a lot of publications because magazines and newspapers like to focus on the theme. So as opposed to you reaching out to an editor and telling that editor, like, look, I have pictures, black and white pictures from New York. Before I used to do that, and a lot of editors would say, this is great work, we love it, but maybe we don't have space, whatever, maybe time. But when you reach out with a specific theme or a project, like I have this project on lonely people in New York, that's something new, that's something more specific, and it's easier to sell and easier to publish, I feel. But generally, just do your work, do your thing, honest work, and keep at it. And if it's gonna get noticed, it's gonna get noticed one day.
Yeah, that's good advice. I mean, you should always shoot for yourself in the first place. I mean, unless you
Absolutely.
really want to make money from it, that's something else. If you have a client that wants a specific kind of work or job to get done, but if you shoot for yourself, the first or most important person to please is you. And
absolutely, yeah, you need to do it for yourself. This needs to be your priority. Your pictures need to be honest. You can't. It's just not going to work. I don't think it would work, and especially with street photography, because what street photography is about life. You don't create those shots, you don't pose people for the most part. You go out there and you take pictures of what already is in the street. It's just about your vision, it's just about you separating a frame out of a bigger picture. But unlike in fashion or portraits, you don't create it, you take it as it is. So the pictures need to be honest. It needs to be your vision. And I would say that right now it's kind of hard to stand out because there's so many street photographers, and obviously if you have more street photographers, then there will be more good street photographers and more very good, excellent street photographers. And here in New York, it's really tough. Like, trust me, it's really tough to get published in New York Times and all those big magazines or newspapers or dailies like Washington Post and Time, because there's almost overabundance of talent here. That's why everyone comes here, to New York in the first place. And then you find yourself playing in the first league, in the Premier Division, and there's not room for everyone.
Yeah, it's very competitive.
Oh yes.
Well, this has been fun talking to you, Luc. Thank you very much.
Sure, likewise.
And one last thing: where can listeners find out more about you on the internet?
Is street photography. It's the New York Chronicles on Instagram. And my website is luckordas.com, where you can see my portrait work. I also have a separate Instagram for my portraits, which is at Luc Kordas. And these are the main sites, yeah. Check them out and follow for more. They'll definitely. Summer is just around the corner. I feel this is going to be another good summer for street. Maybe I'll get to photograph the subway. So good things are coming, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna look out for that.
Yeah. Hopefully, if I don't do it, it'll be embarrassing because. But now I have a motivation to actually, go and spend hours on the subway, torture myself, but get good pictures out of it. Hopefully.
This sounds good. Good luck on that.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Bye.
Cool. Bye. Take care.
Well, this was my interview with Luc Kordas. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, and please make sure to check out his project Loneliness in New York on his website. You also find some images of the project in the show notes of this episode. Also, please check out my other photography blog, which is called The Art of Creative Photography. And once again, thank you very much for listening, and until next time. Bye-bye.